Pushing on 6 o'clock. Curtis, are we ready? With that, we'll call our meeting to order. And first up, we'll entertain a motion for the agenda.
Move to approve.
Support.
A motion to support. Are there any additions, deletions, or changes? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. We have an agenda. Roll call. Are you completed?
All set.
All right, thank you.
Sir.
Next item is Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. Next, we entertain a motion for the approval of the December 26, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion to support. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Request for purchase. We would consider a resolution to approve a request for purchase to Lunghammer Ford of Owasso, or something like that.
I think it's Lunghammer.
Lunghammer? Okay, thank you.
Just like,
My apologies to the Lunghammer group. Anyway, Lunghammer Ford of Owasso for the purchase of 2023 Ford Explorer Police Interceptor in the amount of $43,968.20. Your pleasure.
Approval.
Support.
Okay, we have motion support. Any comments or questions?
This is the second patrol car that we budgeted for to be replaced. We were fortunate enough, we didn't know if we would receive this one this year. And we are receiving a 23, which is some good news also from a standpoint of we'll be able to use some of the equipment in a current patrol vehicle, moving it over to that, because the 24 version changes.
The whole big, yeah.
So we'll be able to move some stuff over.
Okay. Anybody else have questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. We've got a new police car, looks like. Recommendation on bids. We're to consider a resolution to receive bids for the wastewater treatment plant sodium hypochlorite conversion project and award the contract to the recommended bidder. Also to approve a corresponding request for purchase and to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the related agreement. We had 3 bids received on December 20, 2023. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. And they were from RCL Construction of Sanford, Oak Construction Corporation of Swartz Creek, and Sorensen Gross Company LLC of Flint, ranging from $947,000 down to $734,800, which is the recommended bidder, the low bid. Your pleasure thereof.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion support. Any more background?
Just, we're finally,
big project.
We've been talking about this for 2 years. We're finally here with the actual bid in front of us. The good news is that the engineered bid estimate was $850,000, so we did receive 2 bids underneath that estimated engineering bid. And so we're happy to report that the OHM, our engineer in this project, did write a letter of recommending RCL Construction, checking out the references, and they have worked with them on other projects across the state. So I think we got a good contractor here and a good bid price. So.
Yay.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff just generally needs to be done? To convert, you change all the tanks, or there's the guy.
$734,800.
That's the stuff. The long and short of it, it's like we talked about, it's a big safety issue.
Yeah, I know, I just wonder what has to be done to convert.
Dave Ringel, Public Services Director. They need to replace some of the feed lines, storage, piping, really piping's the main one, and add a couple processes into where they inject the sodium hypochlorite, but it's much safer than the chlorine that we have been using, so really that's what it is. We're also going to have a cost, we're going to do an asbestos abatement, so there's going to be costs related to that coming up as well. We're still waiting on that survey to get done. Some of it may have coating on the pipes, that type of thing, so.
Okay, thank you.
It's under, like Eric mentioned, it is under our budgeted amount, so that was really good to see too, especially this time of year. Time and bidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions for Dave? I've got one, if you don't mind. And you already mentioned you were going to investigate some asbestos abatement while you're in there. Are there other things that perhaps we could look at that make sense to do in conjunction with this project, since we are a little bit under budget? Are there things that might be cheaper to do now because we're in a project than, sometimes they're just are?
Some of it we are doing as a part of this. We've talked about safety improvements. That's a separate contract that we're doing. But because of the doors and the walls that have to be taken out to get the tank in, if anybody's familiar with this, the west wall of the building has to actually be removed to get the new tank in. So there's gonna be some doors that are replaced as a part of this project. We're also gonna replace some as a part of our security upgrades, some windows, that type of thing. There are some eye wash stations that are getting replaced as a part of this that are just old to the building. Alarms are gonna be replaced as a part of this as well. It's part of the process.
Good, thank you. Okay, with that, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. The motion is carried. Thank you. Moving right on down to resolutions. First up, we are to consider a resolution declaring our official intent to reimburse project expenditures with bond proceeds and authorize the publication notice of intent to issue bonds for our drinking water SRF funding project. Your pleasure.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion support. I'm giving background. We've talked about it a little bit, but
Yep.
for the cameras.
For sure.
What's up there?
This is the first step in the bonding process of this resolution. Once we get the project back and we know what our costs are, we'll be coming back for an authorization of resolution for the final details of the bonds that we need and the terms of those bonds for the project itself. Because basically what happens is the loan that we receive from the state of Michigan is going out for those bonds, and then they in turn loan that money to us. So we have to make an agreement with them along those lines. So we'll be back again here probably June, July. So
Good deal. Questions? Hearing none, those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Thank you. Next up, we're considering a resolution to receive Johnson Controls Statement of Qualifications for the design and construction via performance-based contract for our wastewater treatment plant upgrades. Your pleasure.
Move to adopt.
support.
We have motion support. Eric?
Yes. Yep, we have Dan Mack here from Johnson Controls. He's gonna talk a little bit more about the process. We talked about this performance-based building at our last meeting, but we thought it'd be good to have Johnson Controls come here after we received the RFQs, and we only did receive the one RFQ for it. This project management is required as part for us to submit a clean water, which is the wastewater side of things, our SRF. You got too many acronyms. Just like we did with the clean, with the drinking water. In that case, we used OHM to help us work through that and submit the application for that. This is a similar process. You get a project management team on that and create the application itself. And in this case, we do want to mention that right now there's no cost. This is an engagement letter, doesn't, to get things rolling. But if we'll be back at some point, probably maybe April, I assume, to present a application that will be submitted to the state of Michigan for the SW or CW SRF. But in this case, there will be a fee that we need to pay for the application, somewhere between $80,000 to $120,000. We didn't have that fee on the previous one, because that's why we're mentioning it, because the state of Michigan picked up that fee for all the municipalities that submitted an SRF to the drinking water. So that's a little bit different than the last one here. From there, I guess I'll just turn it over to Dan to kind of talk about the process, and if the commission has any questions, take care of those now.
Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me. First of all, I do want to say Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Everyone's New Year's going well, even though you got a little cruddy weather here. Do you have those slides that might be helpful to keep everyone kind of on? Give you something to look at besides my face. So I guess I'll just start out by saying performance contracting is a little bit different than the design bid build model that you may be used to. There's a couple of reasons for that. Well, that's coming up. There it is. Is it up here? Okay. So we started this probably 30 years ago. And the reason that we did that was a lot of our customers were telling us, and we're not the only ones that do it, by the way. The customers are telling us that, we're taking on a lot of risk by having a design engineer design the project and then handing it off to a construction manager who then bids it out. And by the time you get to the end, the design intent is, any issues with the design intent come back to you as change orders. And so we had customers ask us to revisit that, and so we did that. And so what we do is, we've got the design, engineer, construction management, construction, QC, commissioning, all of that is under one umbrella, so that we can provide those guaranteed outcomes to our customers. And so there's two things that, when I say guaranteed outcomes, we're talking about the actual performance of the equipment, because we designed it, we built it, we saw everything out in the field that could go wrong, and if it does go wrong, it's on us, it doesn't go back to the customer. So there's the equipment intent is something that we take ownership of. So there's no, we're kind of pointing like this. And then the other thing is the cost. So because we've designed it with the constructability folks at the same table, if we miss something as a designer, then we're eating that. So there's kind of those two things with performance. That's where the performance piece comes with performance contracting. So in terms of what we would be doing for the city of Alma, we would be, as city manager said, we would be preparing that project plan for Eagle, but we'd also be doing the design, engineering, and put together a contract for construction. You're in kind of a unique time right now. Eagle has I don't know what you know about SRF, but it's basically a federal program. They give the states dollars, the states administer those, and Eagle is the one that administers that. The Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. It used to be DEQ. I don't know if you know about Eagle. So they've got about $550 million this year for these clean water projects. And we just got a letter from them stating that they got $2 billion worth of requests for that $550 million. And that's going to go to folks that have, or plants that have PFAS issues, cities that have PFAS issues, cities that have violations, because they're responsible for making sure that the water is clean, it's coming out of the plants. So those are the ones that are going to get the money. You unfortunately don't have those issues. While we're still going to go after the SRF funds because the terms are better, there's a very real possibility that you may have to fund these in another way, through a bond or a tax income lease purchase. We've talked to your team about that, and there are some alternatives to that. But for our engagement, we'll engage into a project development agreement, and so we'll develop the project plan. And I would suggest that we start developing some of the more critical path items, like the headworks and the, it's escaping me now, the clarifiers, as something that you would do either way. And so that's something that I would suggest. But if you decide, let's say you don't get the SRF funds and you decide not to go forward with other funds, we would just get paid a breakaway fee that is basically the work done on engineering so far. But those are things that we'll talk to your team when we develop that project development agreement about what the best path is for the city. I was told to keep it to 5 minutes. So I think I'm there. And there's some other stuff I could go through. There is another project that we've done a lot of these projects. I could talk about one that we've done in the state if you're concerned about how performance contracting works within wastewater. But that's essentially kind of what I wanted to tell you. So I'll open up for any questions. I don't know if that's my job. I apologize. I'm taking somebody's job.
Any questions? I think we have talked about it a little bit, so.
Yeah. like Dan said, as we move through the process, it's kind of like an elevator, you can get off at different floors. It's like, hey, this isn't for us. Maybe it's just we step aside and we stop where we are with the engineering or whatever it may be, and then and try something else. It is going to be super competitive. It's frustrating. I understand the PFAS things. That's more of a newer issue that's popped up in the state of Michigan, and they're really focusing on that. It hasn't been something that they've done so much in the past, but it's becoming more and more. But what is frustrating is that they're prioritizing folks who have, violations. We're doing our best to make sure and charging enough in our rates to make sure that we are covering and making sure we don't have violations of putting unclean water into our waterways as we clean our waste. So that's the frustrating part of it. But we figure this is the best rates, like we've talked about with just the drinking water, on how much of a difference it was of getting the rest of that loan through the SRF at 2.5, 2.1, 2.2%, as opposed to the 4 over, that 20-year, 30-year period, talking about $5-6 million. So even if we don't get it this time around, we may have another opportunity next year to do it, get us on the radar, get the work done, and none of this stuff I don't think is a waste of time to do. So, but anyway, sorry, Dan.
Dave Ringel, Public Services Director. Just to give you a background of where Johnson Control came in, why we were exploring performance-based contracting we never had before. Back 4 or 5 years ago, commissioners remember the goal setting session we had. I kind of dominated that one with lead and copper and infrastructure replacements. We talked about a three-tiered process, or I'm going to call it shoot the moon, where we go for everything. And looking through the past couple of years of different funding options, I've mentioned this a number of times, we've applied for a number of grants. Commission's familiar with all these, where we apply and we get the friendly rejection letters. As Dan mentioned, the wastewater ask is extremely competitive, and we're looking at different options with eyes wide open, saying that there's a good shot we don't get this grant. We know that we have major issues at wastewater that need to be addressed in the next 5 years or less. If we don't get this grant funding, what other options do we have? Because we have so much in fund balance, and Johnson Control came along within the last year, and that's where Dan briefly mentioned that if we don't get the money this year or next year, one option could be you could go on the private market and get bonding for this, or you could do a loan through Johnson Controls for this. And then you would look at doing anything you can do as far as some cost-saving measures to try to reduce, electricity, some efficiency, things like that, to try to reduce costs, anything we can do to try to get money back. We do that with a part of every contract we look at, but these are options, because we're at a point within the next 3 to 5 years where there's some major things that need to get done over at wastewater, and this would be an option too. So that's why we brought them along at this part of the process. Looked at them as a new partner to try to look for CWSRF funding, and if it doesn't, this may present an option for the city in the future. So that's a very brief background of how we got to this.
What are some of the major things that need to be done?
As Dan mentioned, there's some headworks improvements as far as aeration, mixing, mixing. You've heard me talk about we have an issue with we're not getting as much organic material in there for any number of reasons. We still haven't found that out. So we are using a lot of chemicals to try to treat wastewater. So we're looking at different processes to do this. Some of this is through bubble diffusion. We're looking at possibilities of changing how the new tanks were put in back in 2005, lowering the air diffusers, maybe going to larger bubble mixes. I'm getting into the weeds there, but that's one option that we're looking at. That's something that needs to be looked at. The other, though, that's on the immediate radar is our clarifiers that we've talked about. If anybody wants to take a tour over there, we can show you quite literally we're running out of bubble gum to patch the sides of those concrete tanks.
Those are the 3 big circular.
There's 2 of them there. Yep. And what's unfortunate is the newest one is the one that's in not as good a shape as the older one, and it doesn't treat as efficiently as it should. So, and also some collection of material. We're looking at the potential or the possibility here in the very near future of replacing our degritter that's part of this too. So that helps to keep the infrastructure, the equipment lasting longer. So, but the big things come up to me are the treatment methods as far as the headworks that were mentioned and the clarifiers. Those are the big ones. So when I talk about 3 to 5 years, we're really staring down that issue.
Okay, thank you. I like this idea of performance-based contracts. I like that.
Always worth looking at a new way to do things. And,
Yeah.
you know, some things fit, some things don't, but you look at them and see what works.
Yep.
Well, it's definitely new to us, but in the world of wastewater, it's extremely difficult to get grant funding, so we're trying to find any other options we can to try to bridge this gap. And like Curtis has mentioned, we look at funding, we have some bonds come off in wastewater, significant ones from the aerators that were put in 2005 and 2032, but some of these are going to be done before then. So, like I said, this is where we're at, that's why we're looking at this option. So.
Sounds like you need some sort of a violation out there.
That's the sad part.
But you wouldn't just get the fine. You wouldn't get the funding.
Yep, exactly. Yep. And that's a terrible thing to have to go to your public and say,
Yeah.
oops. Yeah.
Absolutely. So thank you, both Dan and David, for all the
Thank you.
information. I presume there's no more questions from anybody? Okay, so we're just receiving this, right? Yes. So all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, no. Motion's passed, and we have received it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Safe trip home.
It says adopt down here.
Yes, adopted, sorry.
All right.
Moving on to H with ordinances, we are to consider a resolution to introduce ordinance number 842, which is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances and add sections to allow and regulate the placement, construction, and maintenance and removal of public art on property within the city of Alma. Their pleasure to introduce the ordinance.
So moved.
Support.
Good motion, support. Any comments or questions?
This is the ordinance that we've been working on for a little while. We've met once, we meet again this Thursday with the Art Advisory Board. And this will help move that board along as they decide what types of installations to do here in the future, so.
Okay. So all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Thank you. Agreements, we are to consider a resolution to approve change order number 5 in the amount of $110,721.49 to the contract with McGurk Sand and Gravel Incorporated for the downtown parking lots reconstruction project. Following finalization of the project, to decrease the total contract from $1,048,542.85 to $937,821.36. Your pleasure to reduce the contract amount.
To adopt.
With enthusiasm, I hear there. Any comments or questions?
No, it's nice to be able to bring one of these to you. So-
It doesn't generally go that direction.
No, it doesn't.
so-
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
And thanks to staff for working with the contractor, making sure that, we check all of our scope items and we're paying for things that we actually have in use, so.
Okay, very good. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Next, reports of officers, boards, and committees. Commissioners may receive the following reports by one resolution, or any commissioner may remove any of the items within the section for individual discussion and vote. Before us this evening, we have the Alma Transit December 2023 ridership report, the November and December 2023 building permits reports, the 2023 annual building permits report, the Alma Police Department December 2023 report, the Parks Committee December 18, 2023 draft meeting minutes, the Zoning Board of Appeals December 21st, 2023 meeting minutes, the Zoning Board of Appeals December 28th, 2023 draft meeting minutes, and the City Manager's report. Your pleasure.
Move to receive 1 through 7.
Support.
No motion support. Any comments or questions? Last chance. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. We've received those. Guys, they're interested in receiving the City Manager's report.
What if we said no?
We wouldn't receive it.
Don't receive it.
We'd strike it from the...
And we only have one item we're gonna talk about.
7, didn't
Yeah.
He did say 1 through
1 through
7.
7.
Did you mean 1 through 8?
No. He went to exclude, we're pulling the City Manager's report, number 8.
Move to receive number 8.
Support.
You what?
You do have 9.
Oh, you have 9. Wait a minute.
I have 8.
I have 8.
I have 8.
I have 8.
How did you get 9? How many you got? Are we missing?
Look at this.
Transit, November, December.
Oh, that's because I have the annual report on and it didn't show up. So, all right, my mistake.
Okay.
That I was expecting from the PD and I didn't get, so.
Okay.
I took it off
So
on your
we're-
happy, but not on mine, apparently.
So we're good to
We're
vote
all
to
good.
seven.
All right, okay.
Thank you. Thank
And I
you for
believe
your
we
help with
did
that.
take the vote on that as well, correct? So now we had a motion, I forgot to, Roger, was that you on number
I
8?
move to receive.
Oh,
I support it.
okay, so,
Roger was being difficult.
Being sarcastic, something that never
okay, we have a motion on the table. I assume you're going to give us a report now.
Yep, it's just, we're just gonna talk a little about the election. Sarah's been doing a lot of work getting ready for the upcoming elections. Proposal 22-2 has created a lot of work for Sarah and the clerks across the county. The biggest, not the biggest, one of the largest items there, of course, is the early voting, the 9 days worth. We are working with the county's early voting center down in Ithaca, the Commission on Aging. Letters will be going out to the voters here in January to give them the schedules on that. I don't want to get the details here online, it's just better for you to read them and have them there. Sarah did provide a copy of the list of all the different statutes that the state of Michigan has passed. A lot of people don't realize that when we go in and vote on these proposals, that just gives a very basic framework, and the legislature has to go in and figure out how this actually works. So they've been scrambling around. There's, I believe, 28 different bills that they had to pass to try to make this work. So I would just ask all voters to be patient this year, and the clerks are doing their best to put this all together, and it will be done right. There's nothing to worry about that. So if you're interested, that will be online, so you can kind of read through what the statutes are and what they mean. Coming up, the 24 elections, we got a bunch of them. We have 4 of them. February 27th is the presidential primary. May 7th is a special election. August 6th is the regular primary. And then the general election is on November 5th. So there's a lot going on this year. Sarah was in this weekend working on letters and things that need to go out. One thing that folks, if you do take a look at this out in the general public, if you're reading on this, the requirements aren't just for that day. There's a lot of extra recording and making sure that people are getting ballots, not getting ballots that they don't want. It's a lot more tracking than there used to be of just the day before, day of, and the day after of closing everything out. The tracking is exponentially it's gotten. That's, I wouldn't say the word worse, but just a lot more of it. So just thank you for all our folks who are coming in to be election inspectors and election poll workers that day. It's not going to be an easy job. There's a lot to learn, and a great majority of this will be training and education of what these new policies are. So it's going to be a learning process on everyone's plate. So please bear with everybody as you walk through it. And if you want to know more about it, get on the website. We'll have stuff there to help you understand a little bit better and expect a letter from the city on that. Just some upcoming dates. Our master planning for the public, Wednesday next week, on January 17th, 5:30 p.m. at the Gratiot RESD in Ithaca. If the commission is interested, the following day, Thursday the 18th, at the Youth for Christ, the Gratiot Chamber of Commerce is holding their New Business and Business Improvement Awards. And then just a reminder, this is a public meeting to the general public as well. Our first meeting of the FY25 goal setting, Tuesday, January 30th, 6 p.m. at the Alma Public Library. That is it. Sarah, do you want to mention anything more about elections?
No, but you make it sound so terrible.
Well, when you
Just
read,
wading through it,
Yeah,
but then
when
when
you-
you try to explain it to other people, it is a lot.
there's a lot, and so that's why I'm not going to go into details about it. If you haven't, sure, I put them in the packets to read through, but we'll have those for folks to read. There's a lot to it. So this was a voter initiative that was voted on by the general public. The legislature just finished putting this stuff together. So there's it's not gonna be perfect. Just that's the way it is, so.
No system designed and built and operated by man has ever been perfect. And none ever will be.
Yeah, especially this quickly.
Yes,
Especially
this quickly, but I do have a huge amount of confidence in
Yes.
Sarah and your fellow election officials that have always run very fair, very clean elections in our communities, and I'm sure this one will follow that same pattern, so I'm very confident in that, even with all the extra rules and things you have to abide by and work out and work through, so appreciate all your work on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I don't give my speech.
That's all I have.
Okay. Questions for Eric? Comments on anything he said? Hearing none, we'll entertain, or I guess all those in favor of receiving his report would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. And his report is received. Thank you, Eric. Appropriations, is there any interest in paying the bills this evening?
So moved. Support.
And motion support. Any questions on the bills? The big list. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion is carried. Thank you. Bills are paid. Commissioner comments. Roxanne, would you like to lead us off tonight?
Okay, thank you.
Danny?
Nothing, thank you.
Roger?
Just Happy New Year. Go blue.
Blue's gone.
Blue's gone.
They did it. Good news. You all set?
Yep.
Okay. Lori?
Just Happy New Year and yay blue.
Michelle?
Thanks, Sarah, for all your work on the election, and Dave for all the improvements that need to be made. There's a lot of work that goes into that, so it'll be good once it's completed.
Drew? Sarah?
Okay, thank you.
Eric, anything more?
I'm all set.
Okay. And I would echo the same thing. Dave, thanks to Dave and Eric and Sarah and the teams, everybody that's working on all these moving parts and pieces and keeps things moving forward. And especially, I guess, a good time to remind everybody, the plows are on the streets and salt trucks, and those are hard jobs, difficult to maneuver those trucks. Stay away from them when you're driving. Give them a wide berth, I guess. So with that, we'll open up to the members of the public. If anyone would like to address the commission, please go to the podium. Well, first come to the building, and go to the podium. State your name and address, and you have up to 5 minutes. You don't see many people coming, so with that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Got a motion support, last chance. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no.
Yes, sorry. Got distracted.
Motion's carried, we are adjourned. Thank you. Happy New Year.
No, I was just here.